Hey guys, Rob Zappa here from Winnipeg, Canada again. Just wanted to go over the elements of the sales process, the 5 basic steps to that. It's really, really good to have a framework. It's actually very necessary to have a framework when you're, performing the sales process because of the fact that it's very easy to get thrown off by customers, by prospects, because a lot of times they're going to feel that they're getting trapped into buying something. They don't want to talk to you. They want to try to brush you off the phone right off the bat. They're going to say things like, I'm not interested, or, oh, that price is too much for me, or I can find something better somewhere else. So you have to be ready to, some of these things, again, are brush offs. Some of them are actual, what we call originations. Or objections. So you basically have to be ready to handle these things. So again, it's very helpful to have a framework in your mind of what you're doing. Now, everybody on the internet seems to be a big sales expert, and, things have become so watered down and diluted that, some companies do a million things, and one of the things that they do is sales. You really want to have a dedicated sales team like what we have here in our Closer Academy. Because of the fact, again, that you get what you pay for. You get, the people that you have have a certain level of training, and if they don't have the right training, that's very sequential and very logical and orderly, then you're gonna, again, get what you pay for. People will promise you the moon from lots of different companies, and they'll deliver basically nothing. And the problem is, basically, if you're paying a person month by month, then what do they care what your results are? Maybe you can fire them after a period of time, but chances are they're going to have you in a contract. So don't be stupid about it. Just make sure that you know what you're getting. The other thing, too, is that, a lot of times you might ask a company, what about, what if you put your money where your mouth is? What if I just pay you a certain percentage, of what you actually generate for our company? The chances are 99.9% that they're going to say no to that. So again, it very much pays to know what you're getting. So in any event, there's basically 5 elements to the sales closing process. The first one is the introduction. Now, it pays to be very, very clear about who you are and why you're calling, because otherwise people are going to get frustrated or angry. People are in a hurry, and the last thing that a lot of people want to do is, pick up the phone from an unknown number and hear somebody that wants to sell them something, and, they're a buffoon and they're blah, 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 they don't have any idea what their actual introduction is going to be. That's a turnoff for people right away, and they're going to slam the phone in a person's ear. So basically what you want to start with is you want to start with the introduction, like I said. So for the intro, apart from being clear, what you sometimes will want to do is actually snap people to attention. And what happens is, again, people get lulled into a certain level of voice and tone and way of speaking, and that, and by your words, you could lull a person to sleep, and then before you know it, again, they're hanging up the phone or not even listening to what you're saying. So really, a way to get around that is to snap the person and to change their thought quickly, their thought process. And the way you do that is you could say, the prospect says hello, and you say, hello, Mr. Prospect, it's Rob. And Mr. Prospect is thinking to himself, Rob, where do I know Rob from? Who do I know? Thinking about all the things through their life, and where does this Rob person come from? And that snaps them out of their regular train of thought, and it gets them into a different mode of thinking. And that's good. That's what you want, because then at that point, they're going to start actually paying attention to you. And, from there, again, it all depends on how you progress with things, but it's obviously goes without saying that you want to say after that, oh, hey, it's Rob from Sellers in Motion Closer Agency. I'm calling you because da-da-da-da-da-da, and make sure that you give a very, clear way of explaining that. If this is something where you have actually, a person has signed up for maybe some sort of free lead magnet or something like that, then oftentimes what you'll want to say is, of course, you're going to say, okay, so I saw that you signed up for my free program. Did you get a chance to log into it yet? And Mr. Prospect is going to say, they're confused. They're going to say, I never signed up for your prospect or for your product or something like that. And you're going to say, because you have presumably a good CRM, a customer relationship or relations program, you're going to say, well, Mr. Prospect, I see that your name is XYZ and that you live, at XYZ, and that this is your phone number, this is your email address. And they're going to, they'll be at a loss at that point, because really the point is that they have signed up for your free program. Otherwise, you wouldn't have their information in your CRM. So then at that point, if they say yes, then you can say, awesome. First and foremost, welcome, to our product, our program. And then you can say, what did you like the most about that free training that you got, Mr. Prospect? And then from there, you can go on in the conversation. That's sort of your ideal. Now, if they say no, if they say, yes, I signed up for your free program, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, then what you're going to want to say is something like, hey, man, no worries. Life happens. This is why I'm glad that I called. What had motivated you to reach out to us? And then again, you can sort of, carry through the conversation and always, one of the main rules there is to always be agreeing with what the person says. You don't have to intellectually agree with them, but verbally you have to acknowledge them for sure and say, got it. Yes, I got you. And then steer the conversation in whatever way you want to steer it. The next part is step 2, and that's fact finding, or qualification as some people call it. So in fact finding, your main job is twofold. Your main jobs are to get a lot of information from the prospect. You want to know what their pain points are. You want to know, how much money they have to spend, how much money they make, why are they looking for this program, why are they looking for it now, what is this going to satisfy for them? And the reason for that is because in the next step, which is step number 3, you're going to be giving the presentation. And when you give the presentation, you want to match that to what their pain points are. You want to say, okay, Mr. Prospect, so you have XYZ problem that I found out in the fact finding. Now I can show you exactly how I can solve those problems for you, and you'll give them lots of value. And then by the end of that, if you can solve all of their problems and you can do it in with what seems like a lot of value, then it's a no-brainer for them to buy from you. And this is oftentimes the case for things like, coaching programs and the like, which there's many of, throughout the internet these days, right? So if you have a coaching program, very, very excellent script to follow here. And obviously one of the things you want to say is, okay, so you've signed up for the lead magnet for Mr. Prospect for Rob Zappa's Sellers Academy. So what do you know about Rob Zappa so far? What have you seen about him online? What did you like about the program? And also you want to, as part of the pain point process of discovery, you want to say things like, so you're working at what job? Okay, and how long have you been working there? Do you like it? And chances are, if a person's reaching out and looking for something else, they don't like it. Their job's probably garbage. They're probably breaking their back every day, picking up heavy things and throwing them around, or working with trash or dirt or people they hate or something like that, or a boss that sucks. So bring that up to them and say, hey, Mr. Prospect, how would you like to not have to have a boss like that anymore, and you could join our program? So, and these things, I'm saying them sort of tongue-in-cheek in a way, but these things are actually very, very helpful for prospects because, the whole point of what we're doing here with sales is it's not greasy tactics. It's not like no offense to used car salesmen, but it's not the old version of, what people think of as a used car salesman. Sales nowadays is about educating people, and it's about, presenting solutions to their problems, and you're actually doing them a favor. And, you probably hear a lot about that when you look up sales on the internet. You're doing the customer a favor, but it's really true when you think about it. If you're bringing them a solution to their problem, and if they're going to pay you $7,500 now to make $75,000 over the next couple of months or the next year, well, you know what? And it's not at a job that they hate, then it's actually pretty good value for them, right? So you have actually, helped them a lot. And I could go on and on about lots of examples that I've seen, coming into the program, but, you probably have your own examples of that, and you probably know, hopefully, what all the good points about your program are, so you'll be able to expand on them with people. The other focus of this part of the sales process is that you want to also find pain points and deal with them ahead of time. So, rather than coming up against the objection of, oh, my wife, I checked with her and she doesn't want us to spend this amount of money, at this point, you want to take that out of the equation. You want to say something like, so is your wife involved with the sales process here? Oh, no, okay, so is it safe to say that you make your own decisions? Yeah, I make my own decisions. That takes the wife right out of the equation, because then you can go back at the test close or the close and you can say to the person, if they bring up their wife, well, hey man, I thought that you made your own decisions, right? Like you're the person that's in control of this, right? And so on. There's lots of other examples of that I, provide in my booklet. And one of the good things to do at this point also is to actually, towards the end of the fact finding, you want to share a good success story, with the prospect, because obviously if you give them good high expectations, I've been closed on a lot of coaching programs myself, and one of the things that closed me was not exaggerated, but a very, very great claim, a very big success story. XYZ person, Mr. Prospect, came into our program and they made, $20,000 in their first month. And that does happen in our program quite a bit. So, you're not obviously not lying, you're not stretching the truth, you're telling them what can happen if they're successful. So the next part of the the process would be step number 3. You could call that, some people call it the presentation, some people call it the recommendation, because basically what you're doing here is you're taking the information that you found in the fact-finding portion and you're presenting a solution to the problem. And the more bells and whistles that you can have in your presentation, the better off you are, because Mr. Prospect is going to be looking for bells and whistles. He's going to be looking for a lot of value that you have to offer him, and you want to be able to stack that, and you want to be able to say, hey, Mr. Prospect, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. Do any of our competitors offer this much value for the price? I don't think so. So those are the things that that you want to go through, and you want to also review the prospect's goals with them too. You want to say, so Mr. Prospect, there's a few different routes you can take here. You can sort of stay where you are and do nothing and keep breaking your back at your job, or you can get XYZ product and it'll help you in this way, or you can get YZX product and it'll help you in that way. So these are the things that you have to make sure. And again, it's all about bringing the value. They say that you want to bring value to the table that's so much value that it hurts you to actually give it. You want to give essentially 10 times the value of what the prospect is actually paying. And if you've gone through and you have a value ladder and you actually have put together a product already, this shouldn't be a problem for you. The next thing you want to do is the test close. And basically the best way to say that is partly something along the lines of, if I could, would you? You can also gauge their interest at this point, and you can say, so on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say you are? With 1 being, I wish I'd never answered this phone call, I never want to talk to this idiot again, versus 10, I'm ready to buy, my credit card's out in my hand here and I can give you the number. Those are the things that you want to gauge. Now, if the Mr. Prospect says to you, I'm a 7 or I'm an 8, right away you want to keep that agreement with them. You want to say, I got you. Cool, that's awesome. My first baby was 8 pounds, 8 ounces. I love the number 8. But Mr. Prospect, what would get you to a 10? And they're going to tell you, they're going to say, well, and it's generally not going to be about the price, because hopefully you really haven't brought up the price too much at this point. You're wowing them with the value. And what you can say is, Mr. Prospect might say, well, you know what? I actually need more training in this area. I need more knowledge about marketing, and you can tailor in some cases your program to be able to, or at the very least, you could accentuate those parts of your program that already do cover some of those areas, or you can express to the prospect that, maybe it's not as important in their scenario as they think it is. And if it is something that they want to learn, you might be able to, point them to other resources, or add that as a little bit of a stack in your close and say, okay, well, because that's important to you, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, throw in this extra little bit of knowledge for you, this extra series of videos or this extra reference for you. And then, of course, the last part is the close. Now, this is where the business actually gets done, and all the other parts are very, very necessary, but this part is the part that, again, this is the financial transaction. And if if it goes bad here, then, well, you know what? Obviously, you're not going to collect any money, and the whole point of this is, A, of course, to help the prospect, but B, it's to make yourself money, because otherwise you're not going to stay in business, right? So, a lot of times what I saw with my sales team was that, people would say, you'd get to the point and you'd say, okay, Mr. Prospect, how are you paying today? Visa, MasterCard, American Express? And the person will say, oh, yeah, it's by Visa, but I don't have it with me. I'm going to go get it. Click. And they're hanging up the phone, and that was their excuse to get off the phone. Now, in a way, that's sort of gratifying, because it shows you that you've hemmed them into a corner. You've dealt with all their objections to the point that the only escape they had was to hang up their phone on you. On the other hand, of course, like I mentioned, you're not going to get paid. So really, it's a very, very important finessing point to, to gain. There's two other things I would say about it. Is number one, you have to ask for the sale, and it sounds ridiculous to even have to say that, but people don't understand. They just, they'll present all these things about their product, and this could even go for in-person sales too, and then they'll just sort of, meekly wait and hope that the person says, okay, I will buy from you. That's not the way it works. You have to say, Mr. Prospect, can I have your business, in whatever way you exactly want to say that, and we'll deal with that in another video. So, those are the things. If you find that, you're getting hangups at that point, like I said, it can be gratifying in a way, but you're not getting paid. So what's happened, generally speaking, is that, it could be what we call a coffin buyer, which they were never intending to buy in the first place. But more commonly, you just haven't, as a salesperson, you haven't shown them enough value in your product and in the stack of things that you're going to give them in your presentation part. So it means that you have to go back and you have to work on that presentation, and you have to rehearse it. You have to work with other people and do one-on-one sort of back and forth training on that, and oftentimes if you have a supervisor of some kind. But in our process here, of course, we have a ton of that, a lot of drilling and exams, and you don't get out of the program until you actually are very, very proficient at doing that, because again, what's the point? You're not going to be making any commission, you're not making money for the company, you're not helping out Mr. Prospect. So in any event, that is my 5-step sales process, and we shall see you guys again soon.